All right, so I'm going to have a few screens already open and available here. I've got what's called, I've got the Avatax site up here. That's their administrative site or area. It's where, you know, you set up your company and things like that. I don't know that I'll spend a ton of time going through their setup areas, but we will look at the transactions that I'm passing back and forth so that you can see those show up in this sandbox area that we've been using for all of our coding and testing and things like that, so that we can see results. I'm going to go ahead and just minimize this browser, and I'll go ahead at this point, and what I'm going to do is go into our installation and upgrade wizard. So when a company comes online with Avalara, the first thing that has to happen is that they have to set up the Avalara and the Avatax software first. I mean, it's in terms of what comes first, you have to get all the Avalara and Avatax account and everything like that set up before you worry about doing anything with Acclamare. Because obviously, if you go into Acclamare and say, yeah, we're using Avalara, it's immediately going to start looking for the service that's out there. It's going to look for your account. You're going to put in your information. When you process anything that's going to try to estimate or calculate sales taxes, it's going to be looking for that. So just to be really clear, you know, everything has to be set up on the Avalara side first prior to doing the things that you need to do to hook in Acclamare to your Avatax setup areas. So having said that, it's a pretty simple process, and you don't have to, let's say that the company was already running on this version that you can see here. Let's say that they're already running on version 2019.1.0.7. So if they're already on that version, then they would reopen the installation and upgrade wizard, and they would come into this area, and they would go into this area right here that says modify an existing installation and edit your existing settings without updating the database. So if you're already on the version, then you just come in here to not touch the database. If you are going on the new general release of Acclamare and you are incorporating Avalara Avatax at the same time, then you would actually use this option right here, upgrade with options. So this will not only allow you to update the settings for the client, but it will also update the database. I'm already on the current version, so I'm just going to select this option so you can just see that it's just a couple very simple flags here. I'll click next. The only things that we're really looking for are these two additional fields that we recently added right here on the far right hand side of my screen. So you should see a flag here that says use Avalara for tax calculations. And then you can see next to that, it says address validation method. I'll talk about these for just a second. This Boolean true false flag right here, on or off, pretty straightforward. If you're using Avalara for sales tax calculations, that just simply has to be set to true. And once you have finished running this little installation upgrade wizard, what it will do is it will create a new configuration file. It'll create a new configuration file for the server as well as for the client. And so as soon as you fire up the Acclamare server again, it will recognize that flag. And as soon as you go to log into any Acclamare client on any workstation, as Acclamare is already designed to do, it goes out and checks a shared folder on the network where it's looking for current files, DLLs, you know, everything that the client needs. And it's checking itself to see if it's current. Well, if it notices that there's a new configuration file out there, it automatically pulls it down. The user is completely transparent to the end user. They don't know anything about it at all. The system just automatically updates itself. So anytime, and that's true anytime there's a new version of the software, you just run this installation utility on your server, and then all the clients automatically update themselves when the clients go to log into the application. So all you do is set this to true. And then we incorporated some additional logic in what's called address validation method. So we actually have 3 choices now in the system. So, and these are all for validation. We incorporated a method for companies that don't use Avalara called manual, that basically allows them to click on a button next to their zip code, and it fires off a Google address search. And it'll open a browser and show them whether the address that they've entered is valid or not, whether it locates it or not. We also incorporate or tie into a third-party zip code database software application. We've had that in the system for more than 10 years. And so we just incorporated that into the logic too. All of this was driven by the certification to Avalara. We also have obviously this option here now, which is obviously a really nice option. The Avalara address verification is, I don't know how to put I don't know how to quantify it, so to speak, but it's significantly better than either of the other 2 methods. Is it 4 times better? Is it 10 times better? I don't have that kind of data, but it is awesome compared to the other 2 methods because number one, the user doesn't have to do anything. They just hit the verify button. They don't have to look and, they don't have a browser open. They don't have to look at the zip code table and see the different spellings for different cities or counties or whatever. They don't have to do any selecting or choosing. When they're tied into Avalara address verification, it just literally goes out there. If it finds a problem, it reports an error message basically saying, this address is invalid and not found, and it'll tell you that the street address is not located. Or, it's pretty descriptive with its messages. And what's more is it actually, if you've got something spelled wrong or things like that, it actually looks at that and it makes intelligent changes where it makes sense. Obviously, it doesn't do that for any kind of street numbering or anything like that, but it certainly does relative to city and state, that type of stuff. So it's pretty slick. That's all you have to do to basically put all the client pieces in place. Just a matter of clicking this and setting the address validation method to Avalara. So that's all you do in terms of those 2 flags. Now, within our command center utility, that's what you see here on the middle of my screen right now, we've incorporated a maintenance area under settings that's called Avalara. This little screen is pretty straightforward. Once again, just basically you put in the account number that you have with Avalara. You put in the license key that Avalara has provided. You will put in whatever your company code is. Now we've incorporated a little lookup here that will take you actually out to the Avalara site so that you can kind of look and see what they've got out there. We have a field here now. The next release that I described already about freight and restocking fees is actually going to incorporate 2 more fields right here that are just like this one, default freight tax code. So there'll be a default restocking fee tax code. There'll be a default handling fees tax code. And actually, I think I misspoke. There's one more. We'll have a default insurance for shipping, freight insurance tax code. So you'll be able to have separate codes for each of those particular items that I just described. If you're not sure which code you want, you'll see this in the system in a couple of different places. You can click on this little lookup box. And what it does is it just simply takes you right out to the Avalara site, and it takes you right to where you can find exactly what the code is for the type of product or service that is involved. So at this point, again, I'm not going to go into the Avalara areas because they likely have resources that are better than I at showing you their particular wares. But you can come in here, find whatever particular category that you're looking at, or you can drill into different categories. And once you find what you're looking for, you can find, food items that contain this. This is their code. This contains this code. So I know it's not, we're not off work yet, but if you wanted to have a drink, obviously these are the sales tax codes if you're ever interested, it appears. So needless to say, that little button appears in various areas of the application, so you can find sales tax codes easily. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just show you that we also have a couple of other options here that are built into the Avalara piece. One is, once you have these settings put in here, you might just want to test to see if it can find the Avalara service. So if I click on that and I say test my Avalara connection, it goes out through the web, it hits the Avatax site, it keys in all the information through obviously their API that we're tied into, and if everything is correct, then it comes back with this message indicating you can successfully connect and log into the Avalara service, so you can basically proceed. Any questions so far? There's just a little bit left to show.
No, okay.
Okay. All right. So when you're actually in testing, there's two modes. There's sandbox and actually production. So you can specify that. These are settings as well that you will see when you go through the Avalara setup for them, whether you want certain things recorded or disabled, address validation. Some companies may or may not. I don't know, Aaron, that's more of a question again along your guys' line. I don't know if anybody can utilize the Avatax setup without address verification, but if they can, that's how you can enable and disable it. We've incorporated a number of these things into our tie-in because they were required for certification. So it's not, we didn't always know what the actual use of certain flags were like these, just simply because we were doing whatever was required to actually cross all of our T's and dot all of our I's, so to speak. I know if address validation is turned on, then you have a cool feature that allows you to choose whether the address that comes back from Avalara is actually all in uppercase. So if you consistently want to keep your addresses and city and state or province types of city and province abbreviations in uppercase, then that's provided through this service. Mixed case would be just what you're seeing right here as it's spelled. So uppercase, all caps. Mixed case is exactly as you see right here, standard kind of grammatical usage in terms of that. So and then whether you want logging turned on or off. So I'll show you that. There's a feature in Acclamare that actually allows you to see all of the logging activity for all of the transactions that are taking place within Acclamare. So this is basically, one last cool feature, I guess, is when you get ready to go on to Avalara, we've incorporated this feature as well that will go through and provide a full system-wide validation of all addresses. So it will go through every address, city, state, and zip, and then any that fail are actually recorded in the table that you can produce the report and see which ones you have to go back and fix. And the system in the database records whether or not the address has been validated. All right. So now let's just go right into Acclamare and kind of see from a functional standpoint. It's like I said, it's completely transparent to the end user, but let's just take a look at a couple of different transactions and the sales tax, and then I'll kind of wrap up a little bit. So before I actually start this customer quote, let's just talk about a couple of the areas that affect the sales tax within the customer area, as well as within customer locations, as well as within items. So if I open the customer screen and I pull in a customer, In this customer is a taxable customer. So they do not have an exemption number. This is where their tax exempt number can be stored. This is where their tax exempt number expiration date can be stored. Now, these taxing entity fields you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm gonna strip right off of the screen for the sake of this demo, because those are not applicable with Avalara. Those are applicable with our own embedded sales tax engine. So Acclamare's own embedded sales tax engine uses those different taxing entities. Avalara does not. Avalara simply wants to know, does the customer have a tax exempt number or not? What's the expiration date? And what's the entity use code? These are the entity use codes coming straight out of Avalara. So these are the codes that they're looking for, you know, whether it's federal government, the customer's purchasing goods under the federal government, or it's a state government entity or a tribal government entity, whether they're, you know, a resale type of customer, whether there's some kind of industrial production or manufacturer, you know, you get the idea. Those are all the different entity codes that are provided by Avalara, and they're incorporated into Acclamare. Now, what you'll notice is that, and I don't think I have a separate location set up for this customer, but those same fields exist at both the main customer billing and shipping screen right here. So this is the main customer billing address, shipping address. But if they had more shipping locations, then each location can carry its own tax exempt number and its own entity use code. All right, and then at the item level, we've added a new field. So all items now, let's just throw in some generic item here. Let's grab one. So this item right now, there's a new feature in here, right here, where you can put in the item's tax code. So you can see that that little flyover says the tax code is only used, it's only used for Avalara tax calculation integration. So if you do not provide one, then the system assumes basically the default code that Avalara basically uses for almost, you know, for 90% or 80 to 90% of the products are all coded with this code, but obviously all the exception items have their own code, just like we were looking at a second ago with those food and beverage codes that we were looking at. Now that's where the tie-in again is here, so it'll take us right out to that Avalara tax code search, so we can identify, you know, what needs to go there. Again, you can manually type in a code. If it doesn't require any kind of special category, then you can leave it blank and the system will provide that generic code. And of course, you can work with your IT provider, us, or whoever that might be, to mass populate items according to how you already have them grouped or categorized with whatever particular tax code that is applicable. And you could do that in mass in the background so that you didn't have to scroll through, you know, record by record doing that. All right, these other fields now become irrelevant. This taxable flag right here, this alternate tax right here, and we've tried to emphasize that you know, these flags no longer have any applicability when it comes to Avalara. They're only used for our internal Acclamare sales tax. Avalara just needs a tax code, and it just needs to know whether the customer has an exemption or not, and what entity use code is involved, and it basically takes care of everything else. All right. So if we come over here to put in a customer quote, for instance, I'll select a customer. I'll put in a particular item, and that's fine. And I'll go ahead and add a complimentary item as well. That's fine. Let's give it a price. We'll say that it's $50. Okay. So at this point, when I actually go and look at totals, the system will pop open. The system will pop this open and actually show me an estimated tax value. In this case, $4.08. That comes right from Avalara. So just like that, I mean, you got to see the performance of it. You know, if I go ahead and let me just do another quote here real quick, and I'll choose a different item. Let me go with this one right here, and let's just put in 20 bucks, and I'll go view totals, and then there's the tax. You can see that it's milliseconds in terms of it goes out from the client's workstation and calls out to the Avatax service. We've been more than impressed by the performance. We were really dreading the sales tax integration with any company for that matter, because we just were worried about introducing something like this that could impact end user performance. And we've just been very happy with how fast these things have been able to come back and reply. So those two calculations are captured by Acclamare in this Avalara log inquiry. So you can see here is the first one that just went out. It's recorded in this, and you can control this by security, but basically we created a new inquiry that allows you to see everything that's headed out to Avalara, and it'll also allow you to see the response. Now, I'm going to open one of these, but this is going to be somewhat Greek to everybody. This was used by Avalara technical support, as well as used by Acclamare technical support, to just see everything related to what happened. So this was that first quote I did, $12.97, and basically, line number 1, quantity of 1, $11.60. You can see it used that tax code that I described earlier when we were looking at the item maintenance screen. This is line number 2. Over here on the right-hand side is the response from Avalara, which actually tells us, what's the total amount, what's the total tax, and it actually will get really specific down into the weeds to tell you, well, for the particular address that you used, it'll tell you what the jurisdiction is, what the jurisdiction type is, all that kind of information is provided in here. Basically, every piece of information we send to them and everything that gets recorded and sent back to us is all in here. All right, so that you can kind of see, well, part of it's county tax, part of it's city tax, part of it's some other special jurisdiction, whatever. Now, and that's on a quote.
Right.
And that's obviously in this log. Yeah, go ahead.
Is this feature the feature we would have if we would select the document recording?
One more time with the question.
This feature, log inquiries, is this what we would see if we select the document recording in the setup? If we enable document recording? That's
correct. You are correct. Yes. So going back here to maintenance and settings in Avalara, this is the logging. That is correct. Yeah. So just so you know, Avalara does not store and keep anything that isn't what they consider a posted type of transaction. They keep all the details, and I'll show you that in a second. They do that for invoices and they do it for credits, but they do not do it for all of the estimates, like for quotes or for sales orders. and I know that you've probably talked to Aaron about pricing, but the way that they charge, basically, they charge a transactional fee for every, sales tax that goes on every invoice or every credit. But they don't charge the same way for just making inquiries like this with a quote. Basically, it's something like a 10-to-1 ratio. Is something along that line is what I hear, is that
Yeah, that's right.
for every 10 inquiries like this, that counts like as one invoice. So,
well,
but they
it's
don't.
a little more complicated than that, and we can go over that on another call. But that's close. Yeah.
That's kind of the gist of it, though,
Yep.
right? I mean, it's
Yep.
so needless to say, if I go out here to the Avatax site and I go in, I'm still here. If I go in here to look at transactions, I'm not going to have those quotes are not going to show up in here as transactions until they're actual invoices. Okay, and they're not going to be here. So it doesn't keep that information out there. But if I go ahead now and I release this, so I'm going to release this quote. This might take me a second, so I haven't. This is on hold. So give me just a second here. That's fine. I better take it off hold. All right, so this is my demo system. And let me I'm going to invoice this order and not generate a pick ticket so that we can go a little bit faster. So now I actually have an invoice. This is a real document. A real invoice has been created. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's going to show up here in the queue. Okay, so here is the invoice I just created, 152704. Let me just go back and show you that. Let me just close this screen and close my quote screen. And I'll just go back in and pull up that invoice, 152704. 152704. Okay, so here's that invoice that I just created, and then over here on Avatax, I can actually drill into the document. Now I can actually see the line, and I can see all the tax details. So as you can see there, state tax, county tax, city tax, any kind of special tax, and I can see how it's all aggregated. And again, this is kept by Avalara and can be used by Avalara. You'll notice the status of this is uncommitted. Once I go ahead and post my sales invoice, that will become committed. But that's basically, it. I mean, it's pretty slick. These are my other examples that I have out there that I was looking at these other documents. If I just go back one, these are just other documents that we were going through and testing in the past. But this is obviously the one we just did today. So other than that, I mean, that's basically how it works. It's pretty, again, to the end user, to the customer service person, it just works. They really don't have to worry about too much. There's one other thing I'll just show you real quickly. If I pull up a random customer account, I just want you to see, let me just pull up a random customer account out of this database. Go with this one. Okay, you'll notice that the system has this little blue eye right here. Now, this customer I was looking at a second ago, it doesn't have that. But all of the other addresses now, whichever one I decide to go with, they're going to have something like this, where the eye shows up and it says, this address has not been validated. If I want to validate that address, I just go right into the zip code field right here and I hit verify. And then it just goes out and it, as you can see, it's done, just like that. So just like that, it went out, comes back, it changed because I've got the mixed case set up. So it changed my address to be mixed case. Also brought back the zip +4. So a second ago, that wasn't in there. I'll just show you. Let's just do another one real quick as an example. Let's go with this one. Okay, so oh, that's not a good example. Let's find another one. Let's find one that at least has a city or something. Okay, so this one, 6701, that avenue, Cleveland, Ohio. So, and everything's in uppercase. So at this point, if I just come in and I click on this verify button, so then this comes back and gives me the message, you know, an exact street name match cannot be found. That's probably a typo, is what I'm guessing right there, that maybe that N shouldn't be in there. And that's just a lucky guess if that's right. So if I change that to something like that, let's just try it. I'm taking a shot in the dark. So no, that must not be it, but that's what I thought. Let me try one more time. Oh, that was it. So there we go. So, yep. So now it comes back, changed the case, and went ahead and put in the zip 4 and everything else. So now you can get an idea with the Avalara address verification. That stores in the database that that's now a validated address.
So I guess you are explaining the feature, address validation feature right now, right?
Yeah. Yep. Because obviously validated addresses are absolutely required with Avalara. I mean, that's how all the sales tax calculations are based. And that's basically it. That's basically all of the features that are associated with the integration. I mean, that's how it works. Those are the ties. That's the tie-in. If my system hadn't been set up at all with this integration, we basically covered everything we would have needed to do to set it up and make it work.
Okay.
Troy, thank you. That's been a really good end-to-end demonstration. I really appreciate it. What questions do you guys have?
No, not at the moment.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We're going to be talking to these guys again tomorrow. So I don't think I have anything else that we need to bring up for the call today. Really appreciate the demonstration again. Great job.
Yes,
all right, you bet. No problem.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a great day.
Okay, thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.